Anniversary celebration of the department. It's going to, I hope, be a very fun and enlightening day for most of us. I have to give you a little truth in advertising to begin with. This is, in fact, the 50th anniversary of UCSD, of the university. It is not the 50th anniversary of the philosophy department. We are just coming up on the 48th anniversary of the philosophy department. The philosophy department was founded on July 1st, 1963, by Professor Richard Popkin, as we'll hear more about later on. We thought if we waited 2 more years, everyone would say, everyone in the university would say, what's the big deal? We're 52 already. So we went ahead this year on the 48th anniversary. So very, very pleased with the turnout here. It's very nice in particular to meet people who have had a connection with the department a long time ago and have come back again. It's our goal today to bring together current faculty, students, undergraduate and graduate, with former students, former faculty and community members, and hopefully everyone will get a chance to meet each other throughout the day and talk about their memories and experiences in the department. Just out of interest, how many graduate alumni are there, former graduate students here? Okay, so you can get a sense, including our faculty member, Rick Rush at the back there. How many former undergraduates? Okay, 2, 3, okay, well, maybe some more will wander in as the day goes on. So, I have to give some initial thanks to people who've helped make this event possible, particularly Deborah Ambrose, head of our staff and our business officer in the department. She's been assisted by Catherine Asman, who many of you know. And our student assistant, Andy Lidholm, is doing the video work today. David Brink and I have been planning the event, and I get to give special thanks to my colleague Monty Johnson, who's been working on the history for over a year now and has created this wonderful institutional memory blog detailing lots and lots of the history of the department over the last 50 years. So any of you who haven't checked that out should certainly do so, and there's a link on the front of our homepage. My role here is primarily going to be limited to introducing our speakers and keeping the program moving, but I wanted to take the opportunity to say a word about the significance of today's activities. And foremost among them for me, is the opportunity that this event allows me to introduce a new research direction for our department. As you may know, UCSD's philosophy department, in UCSD's philosophy department, we study the philosophy of mind, the philosophy of action, the philosophy of space and time. But what we have not engaged at this point is the philosophy of philosophy departments. And it's this subfield that I want to inaugurate today, and I'll ultimately be making the case to the dean for a new faculty line in this area. So as you might imagine, the philosophy of philosophy departments will have several components to it. I mean, every field has to have subfields. There will be, first of all, the metaphysics of philosophy departments. What kind of entity is a philosophy department? Is it more than the sum of its parts? How is it individuated from things that are not philosophy departments? Does it endure through time and change? That's a question very relevant to us today. Is it a species of a genus, right? Is there a genus of which philosophy departments are species? These are all traditional ontological questions. However, because this is UCSD, we will approach these questions informed by the best new science of the matter. Obviously, the sociology, group psychology, and psychopathology of philosophy departments will inform anything we conclude about them, but also the geometry of philosophy departments, and, for the chair at least, the economics of philosophy departments. All of these sciences are relevant to the metaphysics of philosophy departments. Second, we will engage the ethics and politics of philosophy departments. Is there an end or good proper to a philosophy department? Are there forms of activity that are right ways of being a philosophy department? Are there forms of collective and partial collective responsibility incurred by members on behalf of the philosophy department? What are the duties specific to the different members of the department? Duties attached to their specific roles? What is the nature of the sovereignty assumed by the chair of the philosophy department? Does he rule for and by the people? Or should he be understood on the model of a Hobbesian sovereign whose will is law? I suspect there's a case to be made for the latter position. Finally, because this is UCSD, we cannot ignore the history of the philosophy of philosophy departments. Unfortunately, since I have just invented the subspecialty, there is no history of the philosophy of philosophy departments. I'm creating it as we go along. There is no Aristotle or Kant of the field that I am aware of. Maybe I may be wrong in that. Consequently, today we are going to have to settle for a merely empirical study, again, not at odds with the nature of our philosophy department, the empirical study of the history of this philosophy department, and that's what we're going to be doing this afternoon, particularly on the panel with Monty will moderate. Enough nonsense. That was an attempt at humor. I hit a few laughs, that was okay. So let me briefly describe the day's events. First of all, the first and most important thing I have to say is there is a set of restrooms around the corner just outside the door there, that if anyone needs that. We'll begin this morning with talks by two distinguished members of our department, one recently retired, Paul Churchland, and one still trudging up the stairs to the 8th floor, Dick Arneson. These sections will take the form of a 45 or so minute talk followed by a 30-minute question period from the audience. You'll notice that there are microphones there and there. Andy reminds me that you have to turn the switch on to speak to them, but after the talks, you'll be welcome to go to the mic and ask questions of the speakers. The talks will be followed by a catered box lunch from 12:45 to 2, so we'll be able to sit outside. We'll be able to sit outside in the sunshine there. After lunch, we will have another talk by our former colleague, Wayne Martin, visiting us from the University of Essex in England. Questions after that. And then we will have our panel discussion moderated by Monty, at which we will have the great fortune of having a founding member of the department. Avrum Stroll will be here. Henry Allison is here. Georgios Anagnostopoulos and Gerald Doppelt. So we should have some, I think, fun times during that discussion. And again, there'll be room for questions and recollections from the audience also. So that's the day's session, and then there'll be a reception at the end to which everyone is welcome. So I hope it's going to be a fun day. So without further ado, let me introduce today's first speaker, Paul Churchland. Although he doesn't know it, I first encountered Paul as a callow youth in 1979. I was an undergraduate at Cambridge, and I wandered across the road to Heffer's bookstore, and there I found a thin blue volume called Scientific Realism and the Plasticity of Mind. And it was one of the first serious philosophy books I bought. I don't think I understood it at all at the time. Maybe I understand more of it now. But I never imagined that I would become the colleague of the author of that book, but that's what has turned out. And so it's just a great pleasure to be able to introduce Paul today. Paul has had an extraordinary career full of creative and highly influential work that bridges the divide between neuroscience, cognitive science, and traditional philosophical questions. Following his first book, Scientific Realism and the Plasticity of Mind, he has published a series of other books, the very influential Matter and Consciousness, which many students continue to study in the department, A Neurocomputational Perspective, The Nature of Mind and the Structure of Science in 1989, The Engine of Reason, The Seat of the Soul in 1995, Neurophilosophy at Work in 2007, and the newest work, which is about to come out, called Plato's Camera, How the Physical Brain Captures a Landscape of Abstract Universals, and I hope that he's going to be saying something about that today. So without further ado, let me introduce Paul Churchland, who will speak to us on philosophy and the sciences.